And so as it happened, a friend of mine, one of the guys that worked for me, had to go pick up a sailboat he had delivered to one of these rich guys that were down there for the winter in his family. And he asked if I wanted to go along, so I said yeah. So we went over, picked it up, and sailed back with the old guy. And he found out I was being transferred up to that area, and that was where he was from. And he was down there. In those days, you needed to have a gas ration in order to get gasoline, and he didn't have any. So he had a problem getting back. So he said, "Well, look, why don't you ride back with me and my family in my car?" He had two small, high-powered boys, and we'll take care of all the expenses, and you just have the tickets for the gas. So that sounded like a good idea. So I did. It took us 2 or 3 days to get up, and keeping the boys under control in the back seat. And so he said, "Well, why don't you come out to my house and just stay with us till you get settled." Meantime, I said, "Well, I sold my car, so that's all right. You can use our station wagon." So he lived out in Germantown. It's a fancy part of town. And so I stayed there first, signed up, drove the car into Philadelphia every day, and until I got set up, and we became good friends. We were one of the family, I was. And in fact, he had one of his buddies. This guy was a really rich guy. He owned a huge fleet of barges that moved coal and everything all over that region, and he knew all the people and politics and all that stuff. And he had a big buddy of his who was visiting him, and he wanted him to meet me, maybe have a job for him or something after the war. Well, it turns out I was out on a trial that day, and we didn't get in until 10, 11 o'clock at night, so that never happened. But anyhow, we were good friends, and after I was out of the Navy and got married and everything else, I went back to see him one time and stayed overnight with him again. And so that was the end of the Miami story. We had a couple of other interesting things happen there while I was there. One, I did go out on submarine patrol with a blimp one day over the Caribbean. The blimps were used a lot in World War II to hunt submarines because they're slow moving and they can really see down into the water. And it was amazing. Over the Mediterranean or Caribbean, you could see every sponge on the bottom of the ocean, and everything is any size moving in it. And so we were out there looking for submarines. So I asked them, "Well, what do we do if we find one?" And they said, "Well, we call for help. That we don't try to. Any submarine has at least a 5-inch gun on it, and so we don't tangle with that because all we had was one little twin mount 30 caliber machine gun in the nose. That guy sat next to the bar, and then the seating area in the back, which had some swivel chairs and things. And mounted on the wall was a few rifles, and in the hold we carried one 500-pound bomb. And if we caught them on the surface, refueling or doing something, we would do that. But mercifully, we didn't find any submarines. But they're out there for as long as there's daylight, and then you come back. And then just to show off, they opened it up coming down the highway, and we were going 70 miles an hour, wide open. And till we got back to the naval base, and a blimp is obviously lighter than air, with all the gas in it, or just a little bit. And to trim it, give it trim up or down, It had airbags front and aft, and if you wanted to pump air into the front one, it would give it a little tilt down. So if you didn't want to come in for a landing, otherwise you'd have a hard time getting down. And then you'd have to drive it down with your engines. And you drop the ropes, and some people grab it and then haul you down. Taking off is the reverse, of course, you pump the air out. Those were kind of fun and different experiences. I also one time went out on a training mission with the PT boats to attack merchant shipping. So they had stationed out there a merchant ship, and we didn't know, and they were not allowed, but the rule of the game was so they couldn't use their radar because the Japanese didn't, so we didn't need to worry about that. So in the early evening, when the moon's up behind them, we threw the thing, put the ship into its underwater exhaust mode, so it'd be quiet, and we'd sneak up from the dark side, so the moon was not behind us, behind the ship. Sneak, 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 sneak. And if they saw us, they were going to turn on the flashlights on us, or the searchlights. But we got in there, we got into the torpedo range then. We let loose the torpedo, the dummy in this case, it's that deep, and we would then quickly go to take it off underwater exhaust to above water, which gives you more power, turn on the smoke generator, and zip home on behind the smoke screen, just like that, full blast all the way. So it was a nice fun day on the water, and so that was a fun time. I also had one of my first major girlfriends there, who was a wave of Navy, and was in intelligence, and so we had a good time, and in fact, during the bait, she had her ears open to hear some conversation that had really to do with drug trafficking. So she got that reported and ended that little problem. But anyhow, it was a good time. But it did come to an end in about 10 months, and I was on to the next thing. End of story. That story.